Hey guys, tonight we slip into the boots, well, worn down, half-repaired leather things, of someone who gets zero glory, zero armor, and a one-way ticket to shin splints, a 17th century postman. The kind who walks more in 1 week than most. Of us drive in a month, your name's on no monument. Your route crosses cow paths, plague checkpoints, and angry toll keepers who haven't smiled since Henry VIII. And today, you're the male. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop your city and local time in the comments, just so we know who's still awake and where. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The world is not yet awake. Roosters haven't crowed. The sun is still rinsing its face behind the hills. And you're already up. Because post waits for no noble, no storm, and definitely not for your creaking knees. You stretch under a thin wool blanket, scratchy with a smell somewhere between sheep and centuries-old ale, and instantly regret it. Everything hurts. You slept on straw again, a luxury if you ignore the bugs. Your boots are at the foot of the cot. You eye them like they're the final boss of your morning routine. They're cracked, one is missing a buckle, and both are still damp from the river you misjudged yesterday. But you wrangle them on anyway because barefoot delivery is reserved for martyrs or idiots, and you are neither. Not yet. Breakfast, if we can call it that, is a crust of bread so old it audibly protests as you bite it. Cold. Hard. Likely older than your last coin. But it fills the stomach just enough to keep the growling from becoming a distraction. You check the satchel, your constant, burdensome companion. Inside are tightly rolled letters, bound in wax-stamped bundles. Some are still pristine. Others bear the unmistakable marks of rain, heat, or having been sat on by a goat. You don't ask questions anymore. Each one is wrapped in a bit of oilskin. Practical? Yes. Effective? Occasionally. There's a sealed envelope addressed to a baronet with the handwriting of someone who's never seen a quill before. Another bears the scarlet wax of the crown, which you absolutely, under no circumstance, will peek at. Probably. Outside, your breath ghosts in the air as the chill still clings to the stones. The world is hushed. A wheelbarrow squeaks in the distance. A dog, always that same dog, barks at nothing like it's his job, and it probably is. You shoulder the satchel. It's heavier than it looks. Everything is heavier than it looks when. Your feet are already sore. You're expected to make it to 3 towns today, possibly 4 if the weather holds, your leg doesn't lock up, and God decides to give you a break. Unlikely. You step out of the posting inn. It's technically called the Red Boar, but there hasn't been a boar, or any red paint, for at least a decade. The innkeeper is asleep on a bench. Again. His snores are seismic. You pass quietly. Your first challenge of the day is not bandits, nor rain, nor a lost route. It's a cow. One enormous, uninterested cow squarely blocking the gate out of the village. She chews. You wave. She does not move. You politely explain your need to get going. She blinks. It's going to be one of those days. Eventually, she saunters off in the slowest, most judgmental shuffle possible, and you're free to begin. Mud squelches under your feet immediately. The sky above is painted in shades of ash and pale blue, promising either beauty or disaster by noon. The first mile is a familiar slog. Your path winds between frost-tipped fields and hedges that have definitely been watching you too long. The cold gnaws at your fingers. You flex them now and then, not because it helps, but because it feels like you're doing something. Your mind drifts. It always does. You think of that tavern girl in Coventry who told you she could read but still asked what north was. You think of your uncle, a one-eyed courier who swore he once delivered a letter to a tree. You suspect he wasn't joking. Halfway down the lane, you pass the miller's dog, the one that bit your satchel last month. He eyes you again, but wisely chooses to sit this round out. Progress. This job doesn't pay much. You're paid per mile, but there's no adjustment for elevation, mud depth, or emotional trauma. You do it because it matters. Or at least you tell yourself that. Messages have to move. Decrees, debts, confessions, love letters, tax warnings, they all ride in your sack, nestled together like strange bedfellows. Historians still argue whether 17th century couriers were state-trained professionals or glorified volunteers with blisters. You'd argue it's both. You were handed this route after your cousin married a girl who needed someone useful in the family. And here you are. You pause briefly at the crest of a hill. Down below, smoke rises from the next hamlet. It's only 2 miles off, but the road curves like it's been drinking. You sigh, shift your satchel, and trudge on. The day has only just begun, and so have your blisters. The descent from the hill is steeper than you remember. Maybe the earth itself is tired, slouching a little more each year. You dig your heels in, careful not to skid on the loose gravel. Your boots groan in protest. They're about 2 walks away from total retirement. But good luck finding a cobbler who takes payment in goat cheese and apologies. As you approach the hamlet, the sounds of waking life greet you. A blacksmith hammering at something that probably didn't ask to be hammered, a rooster who thinks he's royalty, and a child wailing over what can only be a denied honey cake. You pass the baker's window just as she pulls out a tray of scorched crusts. The smell hits your brain like a lullaby and a slap all at once. You resist, barely. You have a schedule. There's a stone post at the village square. You tap it once. Not a ritual exactly, more like a nervous tick. It's where you leave mail for residents who never seem to be home. The old woman with the cat and opinions. The tailor who probably sleeps in his shop. And the man who might be a wizard but is more likely just allergic to sunlight. You reach into your satchel and sort. Letters tied with blue twine for business, red twine for aristocratic nonsense. A small leather pouch that rattles, likely coin, possibly bones. You don't check. Never check the rattling ones. You tuck each item into carved cubbies along the post. A rooster watches you suspiciously. You consider addressing your next letter to local bird tyrant Chicken Row. While here, you exchange brief pleasantries with the innkeeper's daughter. She's sweeping the steps of a half-timbered house that looks held together by stubbornness and prayer. "You still walking?" she asks. "No? I've ascended to hovercraft," you mutter. She smirks, which you count as a victory. A boy dashes past you with a stolen apple. Someone yells. Another day in the realm of slow couriers and fast children. You refill your flask at the village pump. Cold, iron-tinged water that might be 20% frog. Hydration counts. You've learned not to drink too fast. Last week you drank a pint too, quickly and nearly passed out during a royal dispatch. Collapsing in front of a baron is frowned upon. Though, to be fair, so is most of what you do. On your way out, you meet a local priest who hands you a scroll bound with twine and a stern glare. "Deliver this to Father Bram in Foxfield before sunset." "Lovely," you say. "Just one minor note. Foxfield is 30 miles west." "Godspeed," he replies, already turning back to bless some ducks. You add it to the satchel. The duck-blessed scroll rests atop a package labeled "Fragile" in several languages. You're certain it's cursed. Or worse, glassware. Historians still argue whether 17th century postal networks were centrally managed or left entirely to local improvisation. Based on today's instructions, walk to a village 30 miles away because a priest told you, you're firmly in the improvisation camp. You glance at the sky. Still early, but the clouds have shifted into that suspicious formation that usually means rain or divine inconvenience. You wrap your cloak tighter and move on. The next stretch is long and lonely. You pass fields recently harvested, scarecrows listing sideways like they've had one too many. Birds cluster anyway, bold and indifferent. You start humming a tune. You barely remember. Something about a spinning wheel and lost love. Or maybe soup. After a while, you spot a milestone. Literal, not motivational. It's lopsided and chipped, but the etched numbers still declare the distance to Foxfield. 27 miles. You try not to scream. A rider clatters past on a dusty horse, hooves flinging mud in a glorious arc. He doesn't slow. Couriers on horseback. Get all the glamour. You get sore arches and the chance to experience England's entire precipitation cycle firsthand. But you do notice something in the road. A coin. No. A token. A small wooden circle carved with an unfamiliar crest. Likely. Dropped by a traveler or merchant. You pocket it, just in case it buys you a future ale, or gets you hexed. One of those. The path forks near an old stone bridge. The left route is shorter, but likely flooded. The right is safer, but adds 2 miles and includes a particularly territorial goose. You weigh your options. You take the right. Because wet feet are already a certainty, and the goose only bites below the knee. On the bridge, you pause. Look over the side. The stream is lazy today, rippling over mossy stones. It smells earthy. Not fresh, not foul, just old. Like it remembers things. You say, wonder how many people have crossed here before you. Other couriers, barefoot pilgrims, soldiers in armor they couldn't afford. Maybe a poet who threw in his drafts and swore off writing forever. The stream wouldn't care. It just moves on. Just like you. Your stomach growls. You realize you've walked nearly 10 miles since that breakfast shard. There's jerky in your satchel. Technically meat. Definitely chewable. Probably not still considered food in some circles. But it works. You eat slowly, savoring each bite like it might develop flavor out of pity. Soon, you spot a waymarker. An old tree with strips of cloth tied to its branches. Wishing rags. Locals believe tying a bit of cloth grants protection or fulfillment of a desire. You consider tying your jerky wrapper, but decide that might cancel someone's wish. You keep walking. The road stretches, endless and familiar. Your feet ache. Your satchel presses into your shoulder. The world smells of damp soil, horse dung, and a hint of lavender from some unseen field. Another mile. Another day in the life of a postman, no. One thanks, no one praises. But if you stop, people don't get news or warnings or poems or last words. So you keep going. You hear the barking before you see the house. It's not just one dog. It's an entire opinionated choir of them. As you round the bend, a cottage appears, half swallowed by hedgerows and brambles. A crooked sign dangles above the gate, painted, with what might be a hound or a very angry sheep. Hard to tell. The dogs swarm the fence line, tails thudding like drums, teeth flashing in what could be greetings or territorial threats. You clutch your satchel protectively. Nobody's biting the scrolls today, not unless they want ecclesiastical parchment, wedged between their molars. This is the first of many mail stops today, one of those isolated homesteads where time moves slower and bread is usually served with a lecture. You scan your notes. Ah yes, Mistress Winifred Trench, recipient of 3 letters, 1 herbal tonic wrapped in beeswax cloth, and an aggressively poetic package likely from her brother, whose handwriting resembles a war crime. You unlatch the gate, sidestep a suspicious puddle, and raise your hand in a peace gesture. Good beasts, you whisper. Let's all keep our limbs. To your surprise, the dogs back off, except for one that sniffs your boot and huffs dramatically. A tentative truce. Winifred appears at the door, wrapped in a shawl so enormous it could double as a sail. I didn't hear a knock, she says. Didn't need to, you reply. Your security team announced me. She takes the letters and the parcel, eyes you for a long second, then hands over a cloth-wrapped scone. It's warm, crumbly, possibly a bribe, possibly her version of thanks. You nod your thanks, mouthful of oat and currant. Historians still argue whether rural deliveries were standardized or entirely dependent on the postman's negotiation skills. and biscuit diplomacy. You know which side you're on. You press on, the dogs trailing briefly behind like furry ghosts of regret. Ahead lies a stretch of wind-blown moorland, the sort of place where conversations go to die. No trees. Just low grass, stubborn heather, and an occasional cluster of rocks that look suspiciously like someone you knew in childhood. The wind here is clever. It finds your collar, your sleeves, your thoughts. It sings a song of mild annoyance and possible hypothermia. You pass a milestone carved into a boulder, a crude arrow and the word Upham chiseled deep. You haven't heard of Upham? Probably doesn't even have a tavern, just goats. And probably a man named Jeff who talks to them like equals. As you trudge across the moor, your thoughts drift. You remember the letter in your satchel. Wax seal in the shape of a stylized raven. No address, just your name written in looping calligraphy and a vague instruction to deliver it only if the sun and the wheel align. You haven't figured that one out yet, but it keeps you company, like a puzzle with no solution, or a cat that might someday like you. Your foot snags a root. You stumble, but stay upright. No witnesses, thankfully, except maybe the goats. You come upon a stone circle, 3 upright slabs and 1 toppled. Locals. Call it the Watchers. Nobody knows what they watched. Probably the weather. Or whoever decided to build a stone circle here, in the middle of nowhere, and then promptly forgot to explain it. You pause, press your palm to the cold stone. Just for a second. Just to feel something ancient. It helps. There's a farmhouse. In the distance. Smoke from the chimney. A child waves, then hides. You take a side path down toward the gate. Old Mr. Cragg lives here, a retired tanner with too many stories and not enough listeners. He's waiting with 2 items. A letter from his cousin in Exeter and a jar of pickled onions addressed to someone named Fickle Beatrice. You don't ask. You never ask. You sit for a moment, sipping his strong herbal tea. He tells you about a thunderstorm in '92 that split a tree and a cow. Same bolt, same moment. He swears the cow became twice as delicious afterward. You nod, politely. You've heard the story before, twice. Possibly from the cow, he hands you a coin for your trouble. It's bent and sticky. But hey, money's money. Outside again, the light shifts. Clouds gather in ranks, marching westward. You adjust your cloak, check the sky. Rain in an hour, maybe less. You quicken your pace. The next stretch is forested, tall oaks and mossy trunks, the path narrowing beneath a canopy of green. It's peaceful if you don't mind the occasional branch to the face or the unsettling feeling that a squirrel is judging your gait. A raven calls from above. You glance up. It stares back. You remember the letter, sun and wheel. What does it mean? A sundial? A wagon wheel? A metaphor? You file the thought away again. Further on, you find an overturned cart. No horse, no driver. Just spilled onions and an open ledger. You scan the contents. Inventory of vegetables, 3 loaves of bread, and something ominously listed as miscellaneous bones. You leave it. This is a mystery for someone with more weapons and fewer delivery deadlines. You reach a crossroads marked with a wooden post. One arm points to Hathersage, the other to St. Foyle. Your path leads left, but you pause. There's a bench here. Carved initials, a wildflower crown left behind. You sit, briefly. You're halfway through the day's route. Your feet hate you. Your back is staging a rebellion, but you're still moving, still carrying words, gifts, warnings, and groceries across a world held together by footpaths and favors. You stand again, adjust the strap, keep walking. The job doesn't reward the fast, it rewards the steady. You step into the village of Hathersage just as the church bell tolls noon. The square is alive with the clatter of hooves, the laughter of children, and the scent of fresh bread wafting from the bakery. A group of women in linen aprons gather, around the well, exchanging gossip and glances. Your next delivery is to the blacksmith, a burly man named Thomas, whose forge is a symphony of sparks and sweat. He wipes his brow and accepts the letter with a grunt, offering you a tankard of ale in return. You decline politely. There's still a long road ahead. Historians still argue whether postmen were expected to socialize during their rounds or maintain a strict schedule. In your experience, a friendly chat can mean the difference between a warm meal and a cold shoulder. As you leave the village, the path narrows into a wooded trail. Birdsong fills the air, and the dappled sunlight dances on the forest floor. You pass a group of children playing a game of tag, their laughter echoing through the trees. A sudden rustle in the underbrush catches your attention. You pause, heart pounding, until a hare darts across the path and disappears into the foliage. You chuckle at your own jumpiness and continue on. The next stop is a solitary farmhouse nestled in a clearing. An elderly woman greets you at the door, her eyes lighting up at the sight of the letter. She insists you come in for a cup of tea and a slice of pie. You oblige, savoring the warmth and comfort of her kitchen. As you sip your tea, she regales you with tales of her youth, her voice weaving, a tapestry of memories. You listen intently, aware that these moments are as much a part of your duty as the deliveries themselves. After bidding her farewell, you set off once more, the sun beginning its descent in the sky. The road stretches ahead, winding through fields of golden wheat and pastures dotted with grazing sheep. You pass a group of farmers repairing a fence, their hands calloused and faces weathered. They nod in greeting, and you return the gesture, a silent acknowledgement of shared labor. As evening approaches, you reach the final destination of the day, a manor house perched atop a hill. The butler receives the letters with a curt nod, and you turn to leave, your satchel lighter and your heart full. The journey back is quiet, the sky painted in hues of pink and orange. You reflect on the day's encounters, the stories shared, and the connections forged. Being a postman is more than delivering letters. It's about bridging distances and bringing people together. You trudge into a stretch of moorland, just as the last warm rays of sunlight flatten into bronze across the bracken. The world opens up here. No cottages, no trees, just heather and stone and wind. This is the part of your route that feels more like pilgrimage than job. Lonely, unpredictable, a test of grit and boot soles. The path underfoot is soft and deceptive. It looks dry, but one wrong step and you're ankle-deep in peat mud. You've learned to poke ahead with a stick, the way old drovers do. There's something about that thunk of wood into earth that reassures you, especially when it hits stone instead of sucking slop. Halfway across the moor, the wind picks up. You pull your cloak tighter. Even in summer, this exposed plateau can slap you with the chill of a jealous ghost. Your breath fogs a little, and the sweat on your back suddenly feels like a liability. Historians still argue whether 17th century postmen carried weather gear or just got very good at layering wool and sarcasm. You opt for both. Off in the distance, you spot the shape of a shepherd. He's motionless at first, just a dark smear against the heather. But then he waves slowly, like someone trying to remember how. You wave back. Shepherds are your secret allies. They know every shortcut, every dry stone wall worth hopping, every farm dog worth avoiding. He lumbers over, with a gait that suggests he hasn't used both legs equally in some time. His name is Hugh, and he smells like lanolin and rain. You trade him a letter meant for the nearby chapel in exchange for a heel of oatcake and some news. His youngest got caught in the creek chasing after a goose. Boy's fine, goose less so, you. Part ways with a mutual grunt. Words aren't always necessary on the moor. Sometimes the best company is just someone else existing in the same wind. Further on, The land dips into a shallow vale where your next delivery waits. A wayside inn with a crooked roof and a sign so faded it now reads, "The Spotted Irate." Could have been horse, could have been weasel. Hard to say, but it serves ale, and its fire is always lit. Inside, the inn is loud with the kind of laughter that comes from folks who've known one another since their first loose tooth. You nod to the innkeeper and hand over a satchel full of parish newsletters, tax documents, and one letter with a wax seal so elaborate it probably cost more than your boots. You sit for a moment by the hearth, just long enough to warm your fingers and maybe sip something brown. One traveler asks where you're headed, and when you say the mill, he whistles. "That hill'll chew your calves," he warns. You smile, say, "Then it'll get indigestion," and shoulder your bag again. The climb to the mill is exactly as rude as promised, steep, stony, and covered in sheep who all seem vaguely offended by your presence. You mutter apologies to each one as you pass, because frankly, their judgmental stares are more cutting than the wind. At the top, the mill creaks slowly in the dying light. No one's outside, but the door's unlatched. You knock anyway, because you're not a monster. A wiry man with flour in his beard opens it, blinks twice, and says, "Postman or taxman?" You hand him his bundle. "Good," he says. "Taxman don't knock. He invites you to sit, but your route won't wait. Instead, he presses a small wrapped parcel into your hand. "For your supper," he says. It's still warm. Bread, probably. Or pie. Either way, it's going to taste like grace. You descend the hill as the sky turns to ink. Owls begin their low call, and somewhere out of sight, a fox barks like it just stubbed its toe. The scent of lavender and dung floats on the breeze, and in the growing dark, your lantern becomes a little world of its own, casting gold across. The stones, bouncing off the polished brass of your bag clasps. One more stop. A weaver's cottage nestled into the fold of the land like it grew there. No candlelight glows from the windows, but you know they're home, always are. You knock. A girl answers. She can't be more than 10, and she's already missing 2 front teeth. She takes the letter and shouts for her mother, who comes bustling, with thanks and a blanket draped over her shoulders like a cape. You're offered supper again. You smile and decline again, with the same twinge of regret. They wish you well. They always do. By the time you cross the stream near the edge of the moor again, the stars are in full bloom. You pause to look up. Even postmen need to stare at. Something vast sometimes, just to reset the brain. And tonight, the sky is generous. You touch the parcel in your bag. Still warm. You think of the shepherd's goose tail, the inn's ale-stained laughter, the miller's wry humor, the girl's toothless grin, and somehow, even though your boots are soaked and your legs ache, you feel, honestly, pretty damn lucky. You wake before dawn, the sky a deep indigo, stars still shimmering faintly. The chill in the air bites at your fingers as you pull on your woolen cloak and lace up your sturdy boots. Your satchel, filled with letters and parcels, waits by the door, a silent reminder of the day's journey ahead. As you step outside, the village is quiet, save for the distant crow of a rooster and the soft rustle of leaves in the breeze. Your breath forms small clouds in the cold morning air as you begin your trek along the familiar path. The first rays of sunlight peek over the horizon, casting a golden hue over the rolling hills. Dew glistens on the grass, and the world slowly awakens around you. You pass by fields where farmers are already at work, their silhouettes moving rhythmically as they tend to the land. Your first stop is a small cottage nestled among the trees. An elderly man greets you at the door, his face lighting up as you hand him a letter. He invites you in for a cup of tea, and you accept, grateful for the warmth and the brief respite. As you sip the steaming beverage, he shares stories of his youth, tales of love and loss, of wars fought and peace cherished. You listen intently, knowing that these moments are as much a part of your duty as the deliveries themselves. After bidding him farewell, you continue on your route, the sun now, fully risen. Birdsong fills the air, and the scent of blooming flowers accompanies you as you make your way to the next destination. At a bustling market square, vendors set up their stalls displaying an array of goods from fresh produce to handmade crafts. Children run about, their laughter echoing through the streets. You deliver letters to various shopkeepers, each one offering a warm smile and a word of thanks. One shopkeeper, a woman known for her delicious pastries, hands you a warm bun as a token of appreciation. You accept it gratefully, savoring the sweet treat as you continue on your way. The path leads you through dense woods, where the canopy above filters the sunlight into dappled patterns on the forest floor. The sounds of nature surround you, a symphony of chirping birds and rustling leaves. You arrive at a remote farmhouse where a young family eagerly awaits your arrival. The children squeal with delight as you hand over a parcel, their eyes wide with anticipation. The parents express their gratitude, offering you a seat and a cool drink. As you rest, they share news of the community, updates on neighbors and local events. You take mental notes, knowing that this information will be valuable on your future rounds. With the sun high in the sky, you set off once more, the heat of the day pressing down upon you. Sweat beads on your forehead, and you pause occasionally to wipe it away and take sips from your water flask. Your final delivery of the day is to a manor house perched atop a hill. The climb is steep, but the view from the top is breathtaking, offering a panoramic vista of the surrounding countryside. You hand over the letters to the butler, who nods in acknowledgement. As you make your way back down, the sun begins its descent, casting long shadows across the land. The air cools, and a gentle breeze provides relief from the day's heat. You reflect on the day's journey, the people you've met, and the stories you've heard. Being a postman is more than just delivering mail. It's about connecting communities, sharing in their joys and sorrows, and being a trusted presence in their lives. As darkness falls, you return to your village, weary but fulfilled. You hang up your satchel, remove your boots, and sit by the fire, the warmth soothing your tired muscles. Tomorrow will bring another day, another journey, and more stories to collect and share. You rise with the sun, the sky painted in hues of pink and gold. The chill of the morning air nips at your cheeks as you don your cloak and prepare for the day's journey. Your satchel, filled with letters and parcels, rests by the door. A silent companion ready to accompany you through the winding paths and bustling towns. As you step outside, the village is already stirring. Smoke curls from chimneys, and the scent of baking bread wafts through the air. You nod to familiar faces, exchanging brief greetings as you make your way to the main road. Your first stop is a manor house nestled among rolling hills. The lord of the manor greets you with a curt nod, accepting the bundle of correspondence with a practiced hand. He offers no words, only a coin pressed into your palm before retreating into the grand hall. Continuing on, you pass through fields where farmers toil, their backs bent under the weight of the harvest. Children chase each other, their laughter ringing out as they play among the haystacks. You deliver letters to cottages and farmhouses, each recipient offering a smile or a word of thanks. At a bustling market square, vendors hawk their wares, the air filled with the sounds of commerce. You navigate through the crowd, delivering messages to shopkeepers and patrons alike. One merchant hands you a warm pastry in gratitude, the flaky crust melting in your mouth as you savor the treat. As the day wears on, the sun climbs higher, casting a warm glow over the landscape. You find yourself on a narrow path leading to a remote village, the journey marked by dense forests and babbling brooks. Birdsong accompanies you, a melodic backdrop to your solitary trek. Upon reaching the village, you are greeted with open arms. The townsfolk gather around as you distribute letters and news from the outside world. An elderly woman clutches a letter, to her chest, tears streaming down her face as she reads the words penned by a distant relative. You take a moment to rest, sharing a meal with the villagers. They offer stories and laughter, the warmth of their hospitality a balm to your weary soul. As the sun begins its descent, you bid them farewell, the road calling you onward. The return journey is marked by the golden hues of sunset, the sky ablaze with color. You reflect on the day's encounters, the lives touched by the simple act of delivering a letter, each message a thread, weaving together the tapestry of human connection. As darkness falls, you arrive back at your village, the familiar sights and sounds welcoming you home. You hang up your satchel, remove your boots, and settle by the hearth, the warmth of the fire easing the ache in your muscles. Tomorrow will bring another journey, more stories to share, and lives to connect. You awaken to the soft light of dawn filtering through the shutters, the scent of dew-laden earth wafting in with the morning breeze. Your muscles ache from yesterday's journey, but the promise of a new day stirs you to action. You don your cloak, lace up your boots, and sling your satchel over your shoulder, its weight a familiar companion. Stepping outside, the village is already stirring. Chickens cluck in their coops, and the distant lowing of cattle echoes across the fields. You nod to the baker, who offers a warm loaf in exchange for the latest news. You share a few tidbits before continuing on your way. Your first stop is the manor house atop the hill. The lord greets you with a curt nod, accepting his correspondence without a word. You note the seal of the General Post Office, a reminder of the centralized system established in 1660 under Charles II. The GPO's reach extends even to this remote corner of the kingdom. Descending the hill, you pass through fields where farmers toil, their backs bent under the weight of the harvest. Children chase each other, their laughter ringing out as they play among the haystacks. You deliver letters to cottages and farmhouses, each recipient offering a smile or a word of thanks. At the village square, a crowd has gathered around a traveling minstrel. His lute strums a lively tune, and coins clink into his hat. You pause to listen, the melody lifting your spirits. A merchant approaches, requesting a letter be delivered to his brother in the next town. You accept, adding it to your growing collection. Continuing on, you traverse winding paths and dense forests. The canopy above filters the sunlight into dappled patterns on the forest floor. Birdsong accompanies you, a melodic backdrop to your solitary trek. You arrive at a remote farmhouse, where a young family eagerly awaits your arrival. The children squeal with delight as you hand over a parcel, their eyes wide with anticipation. The parents express their gratitude, offering you a seat and a cool drink. As you rest, they share news of the community, updates on neighbors and local events. You take mental notes, knowing that this information will be valuable on your future rounds. With the sun high in the sky, you set off once more, the heat of the day pressing down upon you. Sweat beads on your forehead, and you pause occasionally to wipe it away and take sips from your water flask. Your final delivery of the day is to a manor house perched atop a hill. The climb is steep, but the view from the top is breathtaking, offering a panoramic vista of the surrounding countryside. You hand over the letters to the butler, who nods in acknowledgement. As you make your way back down, the sun begins its descent, casting long shadows across the land. The air cools, and a gentle breeze provides relief from the day's heat. You reflect on the day's journey, the people you've met, and the stories you've heard. Being a postman is more than just delivering mail. It's about connecting communities, sharing in their joys and sorrows, and being a trusted presence in their lives. As darkness falls, you return to your village, weary but fulfilled. You hang up your satchel, remove your boots, and sit by the fire, the warmth soothing your tired muscles. Tomorrow will bring another day, another journey, and more stories to collect and share. The morning sun casts a golden hue over the cobblestone streets as you step out of your modest dwelling, satchel slung over your shoulder. The air is crisp, carrying the scent of dew-kissed earth and the distant aroma of freshly baked bread. You nod to familiar faces, exchanging brief pleasantries as you make your way to the local post house. Inside, the postmaster hands you a bundle of letters, each bearing the distinctive seal of the General Post Office, GPO, established in 1660 under Charles II. The GPO's reach extends even to this remote corner of the kingdom, ensuring that correspondence flows smoothly across the land. You tuck the letters into your satchel, already mentally mapping out your route for the day. Your first stop is the manor house atop the hill. The Lord greets you with a curt nod, accepting his correspondence without a word. You note the seal of the GPO, a reminder of the centralized system that governs the postal service. The GPO's influence is evident in the standardized rates and routes that dictate your daily routine. thehistorypress.co.uk. Descending the hill, you pass through fields where farmers toil, their backs bent under the weight of the harvest. Children chase each other, their laughter ringing out as they play among the haystacks. You deliver letters to cottages and farmhouses, each recipient offering a smile or a word of thanks. At the village square, a crowd has gathered around a traveling minstrel. His lute strums a lively tune, and coins clink into his hat. You pause to listen, the melody lifting your spirits. A merchant approaches, requesting a letter be delivered to his brother in the next town. You accept, adding it to your growing collection. Continuing on, you traverse winding paths and dense forests. The canopy above filters the sunlight into dappled patterns on the forest floor. Birdsong accompanies you, a melodic backdrop to your solitary trek. You arrive at a remote farmhouse where a young family eagerly awaits your arrival. The children squeal with delight as you hand over a parcel, their eyes wide with anticipation. The parents express their gratitude, offering you a seat and a cool drink. As you rest, they share news of the community, updates on neighbors and local events. You take mental notes, knowing that this information will be valuable on your future rounds. With the sun high in the sky, you set off once more, the heat of the day pressing down upon you. Sweat beads on your forehead, and you pause occasionally to wipe it away and take sips from your water flask. Your final delivery of the day is to a manor house perched atop a hill. The climb is steep, but the view from the top is breathtaking, offering a panoramic vista of the surrounding countryside. You hand over the letters to the butler, who nods in acknowledgement. As you make your way back down, the sun begins its descent, casting long shadows across the land. The air cools, and a gentle breeze provides relief from the day's heat. You reflect on the day's journey, the people you've met, and the stories you've heard. Being a postman is more than just delivering mail. It's about connecting communities, sharing in their joys and sorrows, and being a trusted presence in their lives. As darkness falls, you return to your village, weary but fulfilled. You hang up your satchel, remove your boots, and sit by the fire, the warmth soothing your tired muscles. Tomorrow will bring another day, another journey, and more stories to collect and share. The first light of dawn filters through the shutters as you rise, the familiar weight of your satchel awaiting by the door. Today, your route takes you along the Great North Road, a vital artery stretching from London to Edinburgh. This thoroughfare, established during the reign of Edward IV, was designed to expedite royal communications, with post houses positioned at 20-mile intervals to provide fresh horses for messengers, enabling them to cover up to 100 miles a day. In Wikipedia.org. As you set out, the road unfolds before you, flanked by rolling hills and dense woodlands. The rhythmic clatter of your horse's hooves on the packed earth is accompanied by the distant chirping of birds greeting the morning. The air is crisp, carrying the scent of dew-laden grass and the faint aroma of wood smoke from nearby cottages. Your first stop is a modest post house nestled at the edge of a village. The postmaster, a stout man with a jovial demeanor, greets you warmly, offering a steaming mug of ale to ward off the morning chill. You exchange pleasantries and hand over a bundle of letters, each bearing the distinctive seal of the General Post Office, GPO, established in 1660 under Charles II. As you continue your journey, the landscape shifts, with open fields giving way to dense forests. The canopy above filters the sunlight into dappled patterns on the forest floor, and the scent of pine and damp earth fills your nostrils. You remain vigilant, aware of the potential dangers that lurk in the shadows, from highwaymen to wild animals. Emerging from the woods, you arrive at a bustling market town. The streets are alive with activity, vendors hawking their wares and townsfolk going about their daily routines. You navigate through the crowd, delivering letters to various establishments, including the local inn, where the innkeeper eagerly accepts a parcel from a distant relative. As the sun climbs higher, you pause at a roadside tavern to rest and replenish. The innkeeper, a wiry man with a weathered face, shares tales of recent events, including rumors of unrest in the Northern Territories. You listen intently, knowing that such information could be valuable to the recipients of your deliveries. Resuming your journey, you traverse a series of rolling hills, the road winding its way through the undulating landscape. The rhythmic motion of your horse and the gentle sway of the satchel at your side create a soothing cadence, lulling you into a contemplative state. You reflect on the importance of your role, serving as a vital link in the chain of communication that binds the kingdom together. As evening approaches, you reach your final destination for the day, a grand estate perched atop a hill. The manor house, with its imposing facade and manicured gardens, stands as a testament to the wealth and influence of its occupants. You are greeted by a liveried servant who accepts the letters with a nod, offering a coin in return. With your deliveries complete, you make your way to a nearby inn to rest for the night. The common room is filled with travelers and locals alike, sharing stories and laughter over mugs of ale. You join them, relishing the camaraderie and the warmth of the hearth. As the fire crackles and the evening wears on, you find solace in the knowledge that, come morning, you will once again set out on the road, continuing your journey as a 17th century postman. You rise before the sun, the chill of dawn seeping through the shutters. The scent of damp earth and wood smoke fills the air as you don your cloak and prepare for the day's journey. Your satchel, filled with letters and parcels, rests by the door, a silent companion ready to accompany you through the winding paths and bustling towns. Stepping outside, the village is already stirring. Chickens cluck in their coops, and the distant lowing of cattle echoes across the fields. You nod to the baker, who offers a warm loaf in exchange for the latest news. You share a few tidbits before continuing on your way. Your first stop is the manor house atop the hill. The lord greets you with a curt nod, accepting his correspondence without a word. You note the seal of the General Post Office, GPO, a reminder of the centralized system established in 1660 under Charles II. The GPO's reach extends even to this remote corner of the kingdom. Descending the hill, you pass through fields where farmers toil, their backs bent under the weight of the harvest. Children chase each other, their laughter ringing out as they play among the haystacks. You deliver letters to cottages and farmhouses, each recipient offering a smile or a word of thanks. At the village square, a crowd has gathered around a traveling minstrel. His lute strums a lively tune, and coins clink into his hat. You pause to listen, the melody lifting your spirits. A merchant approaches, requesting a letter be delivered to his brother in the next town. You accept, adding it to your growing collection. Continuing on, you traverse winding paths and dense forests. The canopy above filters the sunlight into dappled patterns on the forest floor. Birdsong accompanies you, a melodic backdrop to your solitary trek. You arrive at a remote farmhouse, where a young family eagerly awaits your arrival. The children squeal with delight as you hand over a parcel, their eyes wide with anticipation. The parents express their gratitude, offering you a seat and a cool drink. As you rest, they share news of the community, updates on neighbors and local events. You take mental notes, knowing that this information will be valuable on your future. Rounds. With the sun high in the sky, you set off once more, the heat of the day pressing down upon you. Sweat beads on your forehead, and you pause occasionally to wipe it away and take sips from your water flask. Your final delivery of the day is to a manor house perched atop a hill. The climb is steep, but the view from the top is breathtaking, offering a panoramic vista of the surrounding countryside. You hand over the letters to the butler, who nods in acknowledgement. As you make your way back down, the sun begins its descent, casting long shadows across the land. The air cools, and a gentle breeze provides relief from the day's heat. You reflect on the day's journey, the people you've met, and the stories you've heard. Being a postman is more than just delivering mail. It's about connecting communities, sharing in their joys and sorrows, and being a trusted presence in their lives. As darkness falls, you return to your village, weary but fulfilled. You hang up your satchel, remove your boots, and sit by the fire, the warmth soothing your tired muscles. Tomorrow will bring another day, another journey, and more stories to collect and share. The first light of dawn filters through the shutters as you rise, the familiar weight of your satchel awaiting by the door. Today, your route takes you along the Great North Road, a vital artery stretching from London to Edinburgh. This thoroughfare, established during the reign of Edward IV, was designed to expedite royal communications, with post houses positioned at 20-mile intervals to provide fresh horses for messengers, enabling them to cover up to 100 miles a day. As you set out, the road unfolds before you, flanked by rolling hills and dense woodlands. The rhythmic clatter of your horse's hooves on the packed earth is accompanied by the distant chirping of birds greeting the morning. The air is crisp, carrying the scent of dew-laden grass and the faint aroma of wood smoke from nearby cottages. Your first stop is a modest post house, nestled at the edge of a village. The postmaster, a stout man with a jovial demeanor, greets you warmly, offering a steaming mug of ale to ward off the morning chill. You exchange pleasantries and hand over a bundle of letters, each bearing the distinctive seal of the General Post Office, GPO, established in 1660 under Charles II. The GPO's reach extends even to this remote corner of the kingdom, ensuring that correspondence flows smoothly across the land. As you continue your journey, the landscape shifts, with open fields giving way to dense forests. The canopy above filters the sunlight into dappled patterns on the forest floor, and the scent of pine and damp earth fills your nostrils. You remain vigilant, aware of the potential dangers that lurk in the shadows, from highwaymen to wild animals. Emerging from the woods, you arrive at a bustling market town. The streets are alive with activity, vendors hawking their wares and townsfolk going about their daily routines. You navigate through the crowd, delivering letters to various establishments, including the local inn, where the innkeeper eagerly accepts a parcel from a distant relative. As the sun climbs higher, you pause at a roadside tavern to rest and replenish. The innkeeper, a wiry man with a weathered face, shares tales of recent events, including rumors of unrest in the Northern Territories. You listen intently, knowing that such information could be valuable to the recipients of your deliveries. Resuming your journey, you traverse a series of rolling hills, the road winding its way through the undulating landscape. The rhythmic motion of your horse and the gentle sway of the satchel at your side create a soothing cadence, lulling you into a contemplative state. You reflect on the importance of your role, serving as a vital link in the chain of communication that binds the kingdom together. As evening approaches, you reach your final destination for the day, a grand estate perched atop a hill, the manor house, with its imposing facade and manicured gardens, stands as a testament to the wealth and influence of its occupants. You are greeted by a liveried servant who accepts the letters with a nod, offering a coin in return. With your deliveries complete, you make your way to a nearby inn to rest for the night. The common room is filled with travelers and locals alike, sharing stories and laughter over mugs of ale. You join them, relishing the camaraderie and the warmth of the hearth. As the fire crackles and the evening wears on, you find solace in the knowledge that come morning you will once again set out on the road, continuing your journey as a 17th century postman. The first light of dawn filters through the shutters as you rise, the familiar weight of your satchel awaiting by the door. Today, your route takes you along the Great North Road, a vital artery stretching from London to Edinburgh. This thoroughfare, established during the reign of Edward IV, was designed to expedite royal communications, with post houses positioned at 20-mile intervals to provide fresh horses for messengers, enabling them to cover up to 100 miles a day. As you set out, the road unfolds before you, flanked by rolling hills and dense woodlands. The rhythmic clatter of your horse's hooves on the packed earth is accompanied by the distant chirping of birds greeting the morning. The air is crisp, carrying the scent of dew-laden grass and the faint aroma of wood smoke from nearby cottages. Your first stop is a modest post house nestled at the edge of a village. The postmaster, a stout man with a jovial demeanor, greets you warmly, offering a steaming mug of ale to ward off the morning chill. You exchange pleasantries and hand over a bundle of letters, each bearing the distinctive seal of the General Post Office, GPO, established in 1660 under Charles II. The GPO's reach extends even to this remote corner of the kingdom, ensuring that correspondence flows smoothly across the land. As you continue your journey, the landscape shifts, with open fields giving way to dense forests. The canopy above filters the sunlight into dappled patterns on the forest floor, and the scent of pine and damp earth fills your nostrils. You remain vigilant, aware of the potential dangers that lurk in the shadows, from highwaymen to wild animals. Emerging from the woods, you arrive at a bustling market town. The streets are alive with activity, vendors hawking their wares and townsfolk going about their daily routines. You navigate through the crowd, delivering letters to various establishments, including the local inn, where the innkeeper eagerly accepts a parcel from a distant relative. As the sun climbs higher, you pause at a roadside tavern to rest and replenish. The innkeeper, a wiry man with a weathered face, shares tales of recent events, including rumors of unrest in the Northern Territories. You listen intently, knowing that such information could be valuable to the recipients of your deliveries. Resuming your journey, you traverse a series of rolling hills, the road winding its way through the undulating landscape. The rhythmic motion of your horse and the gentle sway of the satchel at your side create a soothing cadence, lulling you into a contemplative state. You reflect on the importance of your role, serving as a vital link in the chain of communication that binds the kingdom together. As evening approaches, you reach your final destination for the day, a grand estate perched atop a hill. The manor house, with its imposing facade and manicured gardens, stands as a testament to the wealth and influence of its occupants. You are greeted by a liveried servant who accepts the letters with a nod, offering a coin in return. With your deliveries complete, you make your way to a nearby inn to rest for the night. The common room is filled with travelers and locals alike, sharing stories and laughter over mugs of ale. You join them, relishing the camaraderie and the warmth of the hearth. As the fire crackles and the evening wears on, you find solace in the knowledge that, come morning, you will once again set out on the road, continuing your journey as a 17th century postman. You're up early again, because of course you are. Postmen don't get to sleep in, especially not with a leather satchel full of unsent letters staring at you like a disappointed cat. You stretch out the ache in your shoulders and brace for The long southward ride. Today's task is to intercept a royal courier rumored to be en route with orders from London. That means speed. That means roads less traveled. Your path now winds through Hampshire, a quilt of pastures stitched with stone walls and wandering sheep. The frost clings lightly to the heather, and the horse's breath puffs in little ghost clouds. You can't help but notice how quiet this stretch of countryside is. No barking dogs, no shouting farmers, just you, the wind, and a smattering of thoughts you didn't ask for. By mid-morning, you find yourself approaching a crumbling milestone along the King's Highway, carved roughly into the stone. 16 miles to London. Below that, some charming soul has added in charcoal, God. Save the ale. Honestly, fair point. Not far beyond, you spot a small group of riders resting beneath an ancient yew tree. These are not your average travelers. The lead figure wears a dark cloak with a crimson lining, and the saddle is finer than anything you've seen in months. Royal courier. Has to be. You dismount, tip your cap, and exchange the usual pleasantries. Coded phrases like, from the wax to the quill, meant to confirm identities. The courier nods and dismounts, unstrapping a satchel heavier than yours, and opens it to reveal tightly rolled scrolls, sealed with wax and ribbon. One of them, addressed simply, "To the Warden of the South Gate," is passed to you along with a brief warning. They're watching travelers near the turnpike. Avoid the open path. Cool. Great. As if you didn't already have enough reasons to keep your head down, you tuck the scroll safely into your pouch and adjust your route. Instead of the main road, you veer off into a deer path that cuts between old Roman ruins, half-buried walls covered in moss and mystery. You ride in silence, imagining what kind of feet once marched this road. Sandaled ones, bloody ones. Historians still argue whether this path belonged to a Roman postal relay or was merely a military shortcut. Either way, it's saving your skin. Today, just past noon, you stop at a half-abandoned church with a lean-to stable. Here you water your horse and chew on a crust of rye bread that honestly should be declared a weapon. You watch the road for movement, noticing the occasional merchant cart or wandering friar, but no threats. Not yet. Mid-afternoon brings you to a hamlet built around a ruined watchtower. You deliver 2 letters here, one to the widow of a recently conscripted soldier, her eyes glassy as she reads, and another to a brewer who rewards you with a tankard of something he calls hop courage. You sip it and regret your life choices for the next 20 minutes. Further down the track, the wind picks up and the trees begin to shift. Wind catchers of a kind, whispering of storms ahead. A farmer you pass tells you a story about a riderless horse found on the old hill road, saddle sliced clean through. Bandits, most likely, or spirits. He winks. You choose not to find out. The last few miles are muddy, rain-soaked, and deeply suspicious of your boots. But eventually, the terrain levels and the southern gate of the city comes into view. Stone and timber, guards in mismatched armor, a chicken running inexplicably across the drawbridge. You present the sealed letter, and after much humming and clipboard glancing, the guards wave you through. Inside, it's chaos. Market stalls buzzing, laundry lines crossing alleys like spider webs, and everyone too busy to notice the wet, exhausted postman slipping through the crowd like a forgotten syllable. You finally reach the local post office, converted alehouse, if the smell is anything to go by, and turn over the royal dispatch. The warden himself appears, squints at the seal, then nods. "You didn't read it, did you?" he asks, half joking. "No, but I licked it once." You reply. He doesn't laugh. As the sun dips behind the rooftops and torches are lit across the square, you're handed a fresh stack of correspondence. No rest for the weary, but there's a bowl of stew waiting by the hearth, and it smells like something someone's grandmother would be proud of. You'll eat, you'll sleep, and tomorrow you'll do it all again, because the post must always go through, even if your boots don't make it. The stew was suspiciously good. A fragrant swirl of lentils, wild garlic, and something probably not rat, served in a cracked ceramic bowl by a kitchen boy who looked no older than your boots. You slept upstairs, on a straw mattress that managed to be both too soft and too itchy, but you didn't complain. Not when the room was warm and the window opened to let in the sound of distant bells and someone aggressively arguing about fish. Morning comes fast, too fast. You wake to the scent of wet wool and someone yelling about a missing delivery of candles. Downstairs, the postmaster is already pacing, arms folded over his paunch, sorting dispatches into routes like a dealer at a very unprofitable card game. He hands you a small oiled leather packet. Up north, express. You raise an eyebrow. Chester, he mutters, and ride like you stole the horse. Lovely. You set off just after sunrise, weaving through misty streets, still sleepy with the scent of bakeries and stale dreams. The road north will be rough, uneven terrain, flood-prone river crossings, and one bridge that's been under repair since the last king grew a beard. But this is your route now. Your path threads through a mosaic of fields and copses, little thatch-roofed cottages where chickens rule the yard and pigs give you judgmental looks. At one bend, you stop to let a funeral pass. 6 mourners, a priest, and a coffin no bigger than a loaf of bread. You tip your head in silence. The priest nods. No words exchanged. Outside the next town, you spot a curious sight. A toll-keeper's station carved into the trunk of a massive hollowed-out oak. The man inside waves lazily, then asks if you're with the letter gang. You consider denying it, but the badge on your satchel speaks first. He nods and waves you through. Seen any highwaymen? You ask. Only the ones in Parliament. He chuckles. You leave before he can get political. By midday, you reach a staging inn, the type with 1 working window, 2 angry goats, and a serving girl who can identify forgeries with just a sniff. She serves you boiled beef and stale ale. You chew slowly, partly from suspicion, partly because your jaw is tired of being alive. While your horse drinks from a bucket that may once have been a hat, you chat with another courier, a lanky Welshman, missing half an ear, who claims to have delivered a package directly to the king's mistress. Lovely woman, he sighs. Terrible handwriting. He warns you of a marshy stretch up ahead where a courier once vanished, saddle and all. Historians still argue whether it was natural bog suction or a disgruntled goose. Either way, you mentally reroute. The next leg is grueling. Rain begins to fall in measured, sarcastic droplets. The road becomes a negotiation between your horse's instincts and your desire not to drown. You pass a group of ditch diggers rebuilding a collapsed embankment. One of them offers you roasted turnips. You decline. Some lines must be drawn. As evening creeps in, you reach a small river crossing known only as the plank. You don't ask why, you just cross, barely. The horse slips once, but regains footing. You mutter something that rhymes with duck me. The wind doesn't judge. On the far bank, a man in a hooded cloak stops you. You reach for your pouch, but he just grins and offers you a boiled sweet. Long ride, eh? He says. You nod. He vanishes into the trees. The final hour is a blur of aching muscles and resentful joints. You spot Chester's outline through the mist, its old Roman walls and crooked chimneys wrapped in the last light of day. The guards at the gate recognize the courier seal and let you through without fuss. Inside, the city hums with the end of day. Clatter. Merchants packing up. Smiths hammering the last glowing embers. Children chasing dogs that are clearly over it. You arrive at the receiving post just as the bell tolls 7. The clerk, a bearded man with ink on his collar, takes the packet with both hands like it's the Ark of the Covenant. You rode hard, he says. You nod. He gestures to the back room. Cider and a place to sleep if you want it. You do. You settle onto a bench beside the fire, sipping something spiced and sweet, and listen as the clerk tells a story about a postman who once rode 200 miles in 3 days just to deliver a letter that said, "Never mind." You laugh. You ache. You exist, and tomorrow you'll ride again. You don't so much sleep as collapse. The cider had a warming sort of poison to it, enough to numb the knees but not the dreams. At some point in the night, a mouse scampers across your blanket. You make a mental note to give it a name. Maybe Bernard. He seems polite. When you wake, the clerk has already left a basin of water, a hunk of bread, and a note that simply reads, "Ride safe. Bernard says hello." You chuckle, then wince. Muscles you didn't know you had are protesting like underpaid apprentices. But the mail doesn't wait. Not for cramps, not for rain, not even for the increasingly loud whisper of old age you feel in your spine. You stretch, splash your face, and step into the morning mist like a man reborn. Reborn into a very damp, very responsibility-heavy purgatory. Today's route swings you east toward market towns and minor manors, the kind that are too proud to be peasants and too poor to be gentry. The letters in your satchel vary, from ink-smudged, missives between cousins to a silk-tied scroll marked with an aristocrat's seal. The latter smells faintly of lavender and aggressive self-importance. Your first stop is a manor house built with more pride than stone. The steward meets you at the gate, squinting suspiciously. "Courier?" he grunts. "Or taxman?" You assure him you're not here for coin, only to deliver a letter likely containing gossip or marriage plots. The steward relaxes and hands you a plum. "Payment," he says, "for not being awful." You take it with a nod. It tastes like dust and social climbing. The next village on your path is midway through its weekly market. A woman sells pickled onions in suspiciously unlabeled jars. A man offers genuine Roman coins that appear to have Queen Elizabeth's face on them. A child tries to barter you a dead frog for your boots. You politely decline. You stop at the tavern, where a delivery of ink has gone awry and someone has painted a mustache on the tavern sign. The innkeeper shrugs. "We think it adds charm." You nod. The mustache is, admittedly, well executed. As you eat a slice of cold pie with the texture of ambition but the flavor of defeat, a local constable pulls up a stool. He wants to know if you've seen any suspicious types. Bandits, preachers, or worse, playwrights. You assure him that no one with creativity or malice has crossed your path recently. He grunts, satisfied. You're back on the road by noon, riding past hayfields and the occasional deer that regards you with the kind of disdain usually reserved for incompetent tailors. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell tolls, either a wedding or a sheep's funeral. It's hard to tell from here. By mid-afternoon, you reach a bridge guarded by a group of children who demand payment in riddles. You deliver a cryptic pun about turnips. They declare it acceptable and let you pass. One of them salutes you with a stick sword. You salute back with your riding crop. History, after all, is mostly theater. As the sun dips, you stop by a riverside. Hamlet, where a blacksmith offers to shoe your horse for half price if you can beat him at arm wrestling. You politely decline and pay full price. His arms look like they wrestle mountains for breakfast. While you wait, you chat with his apprentice, a boy who dreams of becoming a courier himself. He asks if it's true that you've outrun wolves and delivered letters during sieges. You tell him honestly that the wolves just sniffed and walked away, and that the closest you came to a siege was a tavern cookout gone wrong. Still, he looks impressed. Historians still argue whether the post system made heroes or just very tired men with good legs. Some claim it was the backbone of empire. Others suggest it was mostly a way to ensure the elite never missed their cousin's birthday. Both are probably right. You press on, riding through twilight as fireflies blink along the hedgerows, and your horse finds a steady, soothing rhythm. Your last stop of the day is a tiny stone cottage marked only by a crooked weather vane and a goat that looks like it knows secrets. The woman who answers the door is old enough to remember 3 monarchs and mean enough to have scared them. You hand her the letter. She nods once, then presses something into your palm, a tiny pouch of dried lavender. "For your saddle," she says. "Keeps the lice away, sometimes." You thank her. Ride on. The scent is oddly comforting. Finally, a mile past the village, you find a familiar staging post, a low building of timber and clay, its chimney puffing faintly. A dog barks once. A man waves. Supper smells like stew again. Hopefully still not rat. You dismount, stretch, and feel every mile you've ridden today echo through your legs. But the fire is warm, and the bench is soft, and someone's telling. A joke about a bishop, a brewer, and a barrel of ink. You laugh, you ache, you exist. And tomorrow, there will be more miles, more letters, more plums that taste like dust. But for now, there's a roof, there's stew, and maybe, just maybe, there's peace. You wake to the gentle patter of rain on the thatched roof, a soothing rhythm that lulls you into a momentary trance. The scent of damp earth and wood smoke fills the air as you stretch your limbs, the ache of yesterday's journey still lingering in your muscles. The innkeeper has left a modest breakfast for you, a hunk of bread, a wedge of cheese, and a mug of weak ale. You eat in silence, mentally preparing for the day's journey ahead. Your route today takes you through the rolling hills of the countryside, where the roads are little more than muddy tracks carved by the passage of countless feet and hooves. The rain has turned the path into a treacherous mire, and your horse struggles to find firm footing. You press on, the weight of your satchel a constant reminder of your duty. As you navigate the slippery terrain, you pass by a group of farmers, huddled under a makeshift shelter, their faces etched with weariness. They nod in acknowledgement as you ride by, a silent camaraderie shared among those who toil in the elements. Further along, you encounter a small village nestled in a valley, its cottages clustered together like a family seeking warmth. The local postmaster greets you with a toothless grin, accepting the letters you deliver with gratitude. He offers you a seat by the fire and a cup of steaming broth, which you accept gratefully. The warmth seeps into your bones, a temporary respite from the cold and damp. You learn that the village has recently suffered a series of thefts, with livestock disappearing in the night. The villagers suspect a band of thieves operating in the area, and they warn you to be cautious on your journey. You thank them for their hospitality and set off once more, the shadows of the trees seeming to close in around you as you ride. The road narrows as you enter a dense forest, the canopy above filtering the light into a dim green glow. The air is thick with the scent of moss and decay, and every rustle in the underbrush sets your nerves on edge. You keep a hand on your dagger, alert for any sign of danger. Suddenly, a figure steps onto the path ahead, cloaked in a tattered hood. Your heart races as you prepare for a confrontation, but the figure raises a hand in greeting. It's a fellow courier, his face gaunt and eyes hollow. He warns you of a fallen tree blocking the road ahead and suggests an alternate route through the hills. You thank him and take his advice, veering off the main path onto a narrow trail that winds upward. The climb is arduous, the rain making the rocks slick and treacherous. But the view from the summit is breathtaking, rolling hills stretching into the distance, dotted with patches of forest and the occasional plume of smoke from a distant hearth. As you descend into the next valley, you come across a solitary cottage with a thatched roof and a small garden. An elderly woman tends to the plants, her hands deftly plucking herbs and vegetables. She looks up as you approach and offers you a bundle of fresh herbs, explaining that they help ward off illness. You accept her gift with gratitude and continue on your way. The sun begins to set as you reach your final destination for the day. A bustling market town with cobblestone streets and timber-framed buildings. The streets are alive with activity, merchants hawking their wares and townsfolk going about their business. You navigate the crowded thoroughfares, delivering letters to various establishments and individuals. One recipient, a young woman with ink-stained fingers, eagerly accepts a parcel containing rare parchment and quills. She thanks you profusely, explaining that she's a scribe working on a manuscript for the local lord. You exchange pleasantries before moving on. As night falls, you find lodging at a modest inn near the town square. The common room is filled with the sounds of laughter and music, a welcome contrast to the solitude of the road. You share a meal with fellow travelers, swapping stories of your journeys and the people you've met. Later, as you lie in your bed, the sounds of the inn fading into the background, you reflect on the day's events, the challenges you've faced, the kindness of strangers, and the sense of purpose that drives you forward. You know that tomorrow will bring new trials, but for now, you find solace in the knowledge that you've played a part in connecting the lives of others, one letter at a time. By dawn, the market town stirs awake in slow motion. Roosters crow, a millstone grinds somewhere behind shuttered stalls, and a baker sweeps yesterday's crumbs from his threshold. You're up before most, slipping out the inn's creaky side, door with your satchel freshly repacked and the day's delivery list humming in your head like a well-rehearsed prayer. Today's journey winds you westward, toward a smaller estate set at the edge of a low marshland. This route is quieter, less traveled by foot traffic, more prone to surprise, both delightful and miserable. As the sun rises behind you, it paints the dewy grass in glints of gold, but also brings with it the familiar, unwelcome buzz of summer, gnats. You wrap your scarf tighter, pretending it's effective. On the path, you pass a string of hay carts, drivers nodding with the silent fraternity of the road. One older farmer flags you down with a crooked grin and an outstretched hand holding a folded note. No seal, just a humble message for his cousin who runs the grain store in the next village. You take it without question. Most couriers would frown on informal additions, but you've learned that trust is a kind of currency, too. As you ride, you begin mentally sorting the day's letters, one addressed in elegant cursive from a noblewoman, in Bath to her sister inland, two with suspiciously identical wax seals from the Crown's local customs office, and a fragile scroll tied with rough twine and labeled only "Urgent, do not expose to heat." You tuck that one deeper into your bag. Mid-morning brings a surprise, a flock of geese blocking the road. No humans in sight, just these honking, feathery border patrols. You try reasoning with them. You try sidestepping. Nothing works until a miracle in the form of a barefoot boy arrives whistling a tune that somehow parts the birds like magic. He doesn't say much, just grins and walks on, leaving you with a story you'll never manage to explain with dignity. Shortly, after the path turns soggy, the marshland lives up to its name. Water seeps into your boots, and every other step feels like a gentle betrayal by the road itself. You trudge forward anyway, eyeing the reeds for signs of movement. Foxes, frogs, maybe even bandits if your luck really tanks. Eventually, you reach the estate, modest by noble standards, but with a charm that suggests it hosts more laughter than opulence. A servant meets you at the gate and invites you inside. As you hand off the stack of letters, a woman in her middle years, ink-stained and grinning, steps out to greet you. "News from the world," she says, holding the letters like they're treasure. She insists you sit for a meal. Simple stew, fresh bread, a boiled egg, and as you eat, you learn she once trained as a scholar before returning to run this estate after her husband's death. She thanks you not just for the letters, but for keeping her tethered to that life of books and ideas. Back on the road, your legs feel heavier, not from fatigue, but the weight of stories received and passed along. You think, not for the first time. How strange it is that delivering other people's words can so deeply affect your own thoughts. You reach a hamlet before dusk, where a small cluster of homes surrounds a central square. Children run barefoot across the dirt, and one elderly man with a face like a walnut approaches with a wink, whispering, "Got one for me, do ya?" You do. A letter from his son. He reads it right there, aloud, his voice cracking only once near the end. You pretend not to notice. The village inn is just one large common room with straw mattresses along the walls and a fire pit in the middle. You choose a corner, lay down your satchel like it's your pillow, and watch as families drift in, share supper, and settle for the night. Someone strums a lute. Someone else braids their sister's hair. It's all quiet and slow and easy. You fall asleep that night thinking not of grand events or royal messengers, but of that ink-stained noblewoman's grateful smile and the barefoot boy who tamed geese with a song. Historians still argue whether postmen of your century truly shaped politics, economies, or peace treaties. But lying here, listening to the fire crackle and strangers breathe, you suspect the real legacy is quieter, less about conquest, more about connection. The last leg of your route begins before the stars have fully blinked out. Dawn is only a whisper of lavender in the east, and the village sleeps as you rise, stretch, and lace up your worn boots by firelight. One child, still dreaming, mutters something about flying apples, and you smile, tucking your satchel's flap more securely before slipping out into the cool morning hush. This stretch takes you through rolling pasture land and low mist that curls around the tops of hedgerows. Sheep stare as you pass. They seem unimpressed, which, to be fair, is their general vibe. You follow a series of muddy cart paths, each one somehow both familiar and subtly changed since the last time you came through. A fence mended here. A new scarecrow there. The land rearranges itself between your visits like it's playing a slow-motion game of hide-and-seek. At mid-morning, you stop by a roadside shrine. It's just a wooden cross draped in a faded ribbon, tucked beneath a hawthorn tree. A single fresh flower has been left on the stone base, someone's grief or prayer still recent. You nod to it, not out of piety, but respect. These are the kinds of quiet waypoints couriers notice, not because they're marked on maps, but because they are the maps, markers of emotion, memory. You eat your breakfast while walking, a chunk of cheese, yesterday's bread gone stiff, and a single hard plum. It's not glamorous, but it fuels you. Besides, lunch will likely be better. There's a manor house ahead, whose cook occasionally remembers your face and serves you rabbit pie with extra crust if she's in a generous mood. By midday, you reach that manor, a grand old place with wide gardens and a stained glass window shaped like a sunflower. A footman accepts your packet, sealed in green wax and addressed to the Lady of All-Weather Complaints, which you suspect is both affectionate and deadly accurate. As you wait for your receipt, you catch sight of the lady herself pacing the garden and rehearsing Latin aloud. She waves distractedly. You wave back. Next comes a stretch of woods, dense and sun-dappled, with birdsong so thick it feels like gossip. The canopy shifts the temperature, cooler and more private, and the path narrows until it's barely more than a deer track. You step over roots, duck under limbs, and keep your hand near your satchel. These woods are known for their beauty and their bandits. You've never been robbed, but you've heard stories. One courier was relieved of his trousers, but allowed to keep his letters. Even thieves need news, the rumor goes. Historians still argue whether highway robbery actually spiked during postal expansion, or whether it's just the kind of dramatic story pamphlets love to exaggerate. Either way, you make sure to whistle as you walk. Noise helps. On the other side of the forest lies the final village on your loop, a hilltop cluster of thatched cottages, clustered like siblings against the wind. The view from the ridge is breathtaking. Fields, forests, smoke curling from chimneys. You pause here as you always do, not out of necessity, but ritual. Every job needs a moment that feels like a reward. In town, a young boy greets you first. He doesn't speak, just hands you a small wax envelope with your name scratched on the outside in a child's hand. You open it later and find a clumsy drawing of a horse labeled Best Mailman. It's heart-melting and anatomically confusing, but you tuck it into your satchel like it's gold. Your last delivery is to a retired sea captain who now keeps bees and opinions. His letter today is from a sailor cousin in Barbados, and he insists on reading it aloud while you drink overly sweet tea on his porch. You learn about sugarcane, ship rot, and a dog named Parrot. The captain's missing 2 teeth and talks like a storm, but he hands you a coin for your trouble and whispers, "Don't let this world make you bitter." Not a bad send-off. The return trip is shorter. The sun's already low and the wind has shifted cooler. You retrace your steps, but your bag is lighter, your limbs looser. You think of all the voices passed through your hands today. Letters of love, business, gossip, longing. You wonder how many tears and laughs you've delivered without ever hearing them. And how many you've prevented, delayed, or rerouted with a simple mix-up. It's a strange power, mostly quiet, occasionally hilarious, always human. As you reach the inn where this all began, twilight settles in fully. Your boots are caked with 5 types of mud. Your face itches from sun and wind. But your satchel is empty, your conscience clear, and your belly, soon to be, filled. There's nothing more to carry tonight but your own weary limbs to bed. You settle back into your cot, boots off, legs sore, and head still buzzing with everything you saw today, and everything you didn't. The postman's job might seem routine, even dull. But every delivery left behind a story, a decision, a heartbeat paused until parchment cracked and seals broke. You were there for all of it, quietly threading the lives of distant strangers into something like a community. You might not have a title or land, but you've got reach. And in a world this scattered, that counts. From your attic room at the back of the inn, you can just barely hear the sounds of the tavern downstairs. Someone's playing a fiddle badly. Someone else is shouting about taxes or pigs. But above that, there's laughter, shared stories, bits of news you carried just hours ago, now being told and retold as if they sprouted from the air. That's how it works. You're the invisible seam in the social fabric. No one notices the thread, unless it breaks. You roll onto your side and think about tomorrow. Another circuit, maybe, or a different route. You might be asked to go north, into foggier villages where the roads vanish in puddles and farmers look like they've sprouted from the soil. Or perhaps a diplomatic letter needs urgent delivery to the coast, where ships creak in harbors and couriers get tipsy off sailors' ale. Wherever it is, you'll go, because that's what postmen do. Of course, it's not all noble sacrifice. There are perks, warm bread at every stop, fresh gossip, the occasional wink from a bored scribe. And best of all, you get to walk away from the nonsense. When people argue about inheritance or harvests, or who said what at the last feast, you're already down the lane, on to the next town, the next packet, the next porch with a sleeping dog and a tin cup of cider. Historians still argue whether early postal networks were the backbone of empire or just convenient excuses to spy on people. But from your view, boots on the road, letters in hand, it feels a little more sacred than that. You don't serve a crown, you serve connection, and that, frankly, is more reliable than any monarchy. Tonight, though, no more hoofbeats or handwriting, no more gatekeepers or grumpy abbots, just you, the stars, and the sound of paper settling in your satchel like a sigh. You did your job. You bridged the gaps. You outran the rain clouds. You earned your rest, so you let yourself drift, back through all the steps you took today, down forest lanes and cobbled streets, past muddy boots and cracked seals, through laughter and bribes and frowns of deep concentration. It all melts together now into the hum of memory. And for once, You don't have to remember every turn or name. You can just let it go. Wind rattles the shutters once, gently. A candle gutters out. Your limbs go soft, and sleep reaches for you with quiet, ink-stained fingers. The night deepens, and the last echo of footsteps fades from your ears. In the silence, the world stretches out, soft and still and cradled in starlight. No letters left to carry, no voices tugging at your sleeve, just breath, even and slow, just warmth, tucked into every joint and muscle. You are not walking anymore. You are floating. Let the memories of the day settle like dust on a shelf. Let them rest. The boy with the drawing, the woman with the pie, the postmaster with the suspicious coin. They're all asleep now, too. Even the bees in the sea captain's yard have folded into silence. Outside, a breeze slips through the trees, rustling like paper. The road you've walked 100 times stretches into the dark, but you don't need to follow it now. You've earned the stillness, the quiet, the pause between deliveries. You've done enough. The stars hang overhead like silver ink spilled across velvet. The moon, a soft coin dropped into the night's palm. Your body grows heavier, your breath deeper. You are part of the silence now, part of the hush between words, the space between towns, the rest between stories. Let the cold melt. Let the parchment curl. Let the world right itself without you, just for a little while. Sleep now, traveler. The route will still be there tomorrow, and so will you. End of script. Sweet dreams.